Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ask Christa, the place where you can ask questions about how to work through business challenges and workplace issues. I'm Christa Dhimo, and this is part 2 of my 3-part strategy series. The first part, episode 8, answered the question, what is strategy? This segment addresses the question that I hear a lot, and that's, what do I do if there doesn't seem to be a strategy? In every organization I ever helped to turn around, especially those that have stalled out on innovation or revenue or are bleeding out money or both, I've seen 2 very obvious factors. First, leadership believed they were strategic and they had a solid strategy, and the board believed that also, and that any downturn was because of market changes and or employees. And second, there wasn't a complete strategy. There was a solid sales plan to generate revenues, and there were some great partnership strategies they implemented. But anything related to general administration, the way the business actually works and runs, or plans related to the direct costs of manufacturing weren't nearly as complete or understood as the plans related to sales. And that's a problem when it comes to strategy, because strategy is how a company pulls the entire organization together to meet or exceed their corporate goals. In fact, in many instances of company recoveries, I've seen that the most visible goals are related to increasing revenues, which is important, but there wasn't much else in terms of goals. And this is when it probably feels like there's no strategy, just as the question for this segment indicates. But remember, to sell something, you need products to sell. You need people to cultivate customer relationships, and you need a variety of fallback plans for when something unexpected happens that puts your goals at risk. And if you're a service organization and you do not sell products per se, you still need intellectual capital, codified and packaged to sell, people to cultivate the relationships, and a variety of fallback plans for when something unexpected happens that put your goals at risk. Now, most times these issues with employees feeling there's no strategy occurs within smaller businesses emerging out of startup mode or mid-sized companies that have been hyper-focused on generating revenues in order to move into a bigger company size and gain momentum. As stated in the What is Strategy segment, the last segment, small and mid-sized companies are not typically held to the same standards as large and enterprise-level companies, especially if you're privately held, and that's true for the depth and the breadth of strategy as well. But a strategy enables you to consider what you have today in the context of your current state and what needs to be done in order to achieve your desired future state. The what should include the who and the how also. We can see the need of strategy even in our everyday lives. It's how we get big things done. In the case of a surprise party, for example, you'll probably delegate some of the tasks or have a core group of people who are helping, or at least you should. This is a big party with a lot of moving parts, and you have to keep it a surprise. That's complicated. You're not going to focus just on food, right? Or just how you'll get the guest there and how you'll make sure the guest of honor is surprised. You'll need to be thinking about all of it. Get everyone on the same page about it, and execute as flawlessly as possible. That's strategy. So what do you do if you feel like there is no strategy? For starters, learn a bit about strategy. Most people don't learn about strategy either because they think you need to be a business person or an MBA to understand it, or simply because they've never had a chance to learn. I'll put Season 1, Episode 8 of Ask Christa into the show notes as a resource, the What is Strategy episode. It has 3 additional resources that help to demystify what strategy is. Then after you learn about strategy, and all it takes is a little bit, seek clarity through work tools that may already exist. Sometimes there's a strategy and it's communicated, but it's not getting to the employees because of a manager who isn't good at communicating further into the organization. Or maybe there's a department head who just doesn't cascade information appropriately. So look for the tools that already exist. Do you have town halls or all hands meetings or all company meetings where leadership revisits and communicates status of the big company goals? Well, if you do, the plan for achieving those goals is your strategy. Do you have investor calls? You can listen in on those investor calls. They're going to be talking about strategy. What does your website say? Those companies have their strategy out in front for everybody to see. The more people understand and know about your company, the more credibility it might have, and the higher the value might be. Some may advise that you immediately go to your manager to ask about strategy, but I'm advising that you instead take the initiative to firstly do some exploring on your own. By acquiring foundational knowledge, you gain perspective and put yourself in a position to ask very specific questions about what you believe to be the strategy and why you might feel there isn't a strategy. By seeking out foundational answers, you will have a discussion instead of a question and answer meeting with your manager. If you're not sure how to go about it, something like this might work. Hi, manager. We talk a lot about revenue generating activities and goals, but I'm not clear on the other goals or how we'll achieve them. I see them on our website, but we don't talk about them a lot. How does it all fit together? Because that how does it all fit together is the strategy. Or you can ask something directly about your job with a healthy dose of your own critical thinking as you consider how you fit with what might be the bigger strategy, such as, I'd like to talk about how my role supports our strategy. Our website says part of our plan in the next 2 years is to increase production through expansion of plants and use of automation. Since we're in supply chain, can I contribute to some of the capital equipment deals to learn more about how supply chain is involved in the strategic goals of our organization? Exploring and learning about your company's strategy as a first step will offer opportunities for a far more enriching discussion, one that should lead to some depth in the answer, certainly more than just asking about what the strategy is. And some of that discussion might open up some promotional opportunities or developmental opportunities for you as well. And one of the greatest ways you can learn about strategy and also test how good the strategy is to discuss how your role will enable the execution of strategy. If in contrast, there is nothing you can find on your website that bridges the gap across the current state, desired state, and your role, or if you don't have meetings, or if you are in an organization where you don't talk about how you're going to get to the goals or achieve them, if it doesn't communicate well in terms of your organizational culture with town halls and such, then the discussion with your manager will obviously be different. You might want to approach it a little bit like this. I've been learning a bit more about strategy, its purpose, how strategic planning works, and how solid strategy provides the roadmap for meeting the goals of a business. Where can I learn more about our strategy or our strategic plan? I've looked on the website, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong place because I couldn't find it. I'm curious about how I can get more involved in the bigger picture while I remain focused on my role. Now, obviously, this might be a weird discussion because if your manager isn't talking about the strategic plan, and if your CEO isn't talking about the strategic plan, or talking ever, chances are you're in one of those smaller businesses that may not have a strategy. They may think they do because it's all about revenue generating and raising capital, but that's not a strategy. Those are goals to advance something, and the something would be the strategy, but in this case, they're only looking at income. They're only looking at what's coming in to the organization. They're not looking at how they're spending that income and how they'll advance other things. And strategy includes the who and the how as well. In truth, I've seen managers sometimes become defensive when their employees ask about strategy, as if the employee is challenging the manager. This is one of the reasons why I think it's so important that everybody understands what strategy is. I've also seen managers insisting that there is a strategy when there isn't one, but they're not able to articulate it. So do what feels right for you based on where you work. You will know best. But if you do have the discussion and you do not understand or hear about the strategy by the time the discussion is done, then You might be in an organization that does not have a clear strategy. And again, that happens. Companies can survive on the momentum of an idea or one goal and without a broader strategy for a little while. But soon they will run out of runway. They simply don't have a roadmap that provides the path forward, including what remains tight for structure or loose for flexibility, and how the whole organization, made up of several different employees and functions, will work together to meet or exceed organizational goals. That's just not a sustainable model. So don't be alarmed, but also know that the feeling you have that there is no strategy is right. And soon it will probably feel as though you have no real direction, or maybe it already feels that way and that's why you're asking the question. Or it might feel that the teams work in a disjointed way, all focused on what they think needs to be done versus focused on a unifying, prioritized approach that focuses on specific goals. But that's not you. It's not you thinking that something feels off and it's not off. It is off. It's the reality when there is no strategy. For this segment's resources, I included an article from Sloan Management Review from Sull, and Yoder. The article is called "No One Knows Your Strategy, Not Even Your Top Leaders." It's from the Strategic Agility Project, which I just learned about as I sought out additional resources for you, and I've included the Strategic Agility Project information in the resources also. Now, the article that I'm recommending touches on elements that we strategy professionals review a lot with senior leaders, that their strategy and how many people know the strategy and the priorities and the goals is probably not as strong or solid as, or as well known as senior leaders might think. What I love about the article, aside from how practical and directive it is that it is based on research. Remember, business as a social science has a lot of valuable research associated with it, and a lot of research is published in Sloan Management Review, Harvard Business Review, and a variety of other journals that are written specifically for anyone working in a business. Anyone can learn about the best way to build a business, manage a business, implement strategy, grow a business, review your strategy, recover a business. For shame, there's so many people who do not seek the guidance from evidence-based research, and I get it. There are times when it's dense, a difficult read, and feels somewhat detached. But in the last 25 years, more and more business research is applied research from academics who are also deeply involved in real-world work. So give it a shot. See what you think. And check out the other articles in the Strategic Agility Project too. They're fascinating and very easy and interesting to read. All right, there it is, another segment. In the next episode, which is the last and final installment of the series, I'll answer the question, how do I draft any goals when the strategy isn't clearly communicated? Until then, keep sending in your questions. Head over to my website, askchrista.com. That's Christa with a CH to submit your question. And while you're there, sign up for the weekly newsletter too. You'll receive a free issue of the Survivor's Guide to Business Challenges and Workplace Issues, then the weekly newsletter, of course, which I issue on Sundays. So you have a few tips, boosters, and comic relief to prep you for the work week every Sunday night. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you for your support. Remember, if you have a business challenge or workplace issue, ask Christa.